Hello and welcome back to Pulp Kitchen. Thank you so much for joining us for this week. As always, guys, we want to start this little piece of Pulp Kitchen fun with an email from none other
than VIP Owen, who writes in regularly with these movie games. This week, he's written in with a director asking us to reorganize this director's top
small
5
director.
things. Mr. Martin Scorsese.
Scorsese.
Hey guys, says Owen. He says, it's time for another list dilemma. We are going for Martin Scorsese. This is my dad's top 5 list. He was a film reviewer for over 20 years for the local newspaper, the Bristol Observer. His love for films was what led me to adore them too. As a child, I would get to go to advanced screenings and press showings of upcoming movies, and that made me the cool kid at school. Oh, what awesome memories. Anyway, let's dive in. That's really cool, by the way. OG local newspaper film critic. Okay, rearrange, add in, or take out to improve this following list for Martin Scorsese's top films. He says, I just want to acknowledge the fact that I haven't seen, that my dad hasn't seen Killers of the Flower Moon, and I think it would feature in his list. His dad says, at number 5, Taxi Driver. At number 4, Wolf of Wall Street. At number 3, Raging Bull. At number 2, Goodfellas. At number 1, Gangs of New York.
We've said many times on the show we need to rewatch Gangs.
Yeah. It's another
I've
long
seen
one.
it.
It's another long 3-hour Scorsese epic, yeah.
I find it already out the gate. I'm glad we're doing this in its own video and not like part of the episode because I feel like it's a longer discussion. Out the gate, I am finding it hard to rank in my top 5 new Scorsese, old Scorsese. They're from different eras. I have like a bias towards like having grown up with some of them and not others. I'm already finding it like, is it right to compare Taxi Driver with Wolf of Wall Street and Killers? I regard them both as amazing films. I'm also wondering, does Killers of the Flower Moon make it into Scorsese's top 5? For any other filmmaker, it would be one of their top 5 films.
Yes.
But for Martin Scorsese, I'm like, well, is it? It's a film I loved. I thought it was fantastic. But I'm like, well, hang on here. Look at Martin Scorsese, George, great filmmaker. Look at that list of all of those films, of all of Martin Scorsese films. I'm like, God damn, he's got some films.
It is a tough one. So I would just say, looking at the list, I would say there's a few of his films that I've seen but would need to rewatch and therefore are discounted. So I'm discounting King of Comedy, Casino, The Aviator, and as we've said, Gangs of New York.
You've not seen, well, you haven't seen them in a while.
I haven't seen them in a while.
Okay.
I mean, I've seen Hugo, but that's not really a contender.
No, it's not a contender. Worst film?
I haven't seen The Last Temptation of Christ. I haven't seen Bringing Out the Dead. I tell you what I have seen is Cape Fear, his remake of Cape Fear, and I thought it was really bad.
Oh, really?
It was actually the first time I watched a Scorsese film. I thought, God, this is terrible.
Better to talk about his worst films. More interesting.
Okay, I've got my list here. I'm just trying to organize it into a way that could be 1, 2.
Looking at my list, and I've not necessarily ranked them, but I think there's a recency bias. So I would say, I'm going to start out the gate. I think if someone had never seen a film by Martin Scorsese, and they said, where should I start? I would say Goodfellas.
Yeah, I think that's the OG.
And therefore, maybe for this list, sits at the top.
Yeah, for me, Goodfellas sits at the top. Yeah.
And even though maybe I think I would more happily, if you said pick a Scorsese film from the bookshelf, it might not be the film I'd pick up, but nonetheless, if we were doing, hi, I've never seen a film before. What should I do? I've heard this Scorsese guy is quite good. I go sit down and watch Goodfellas, and then we can talk.
I think so because I have Taxi Driver in this list, but I don't have it number 1 because it's like Goodfellas is still. I feel like it's still broadly watchable, even if you've never seen, as you said, another Scorsese film. If you were just going to throw it on, it's still very entertaining and gripping. Whereas something about Taxi Driver, it's a bit more nihilistic, a bit darker, a bit older. That makes it a little bit more niche. It also has lower budget and everything. But Goodfellas, it is like, it's a great movie. One of the greatest.
For a reason.
And I think it is almost like the quintessential Scorsese movie. It's got great needle drops, mobster crime story. It plays with the form really interestingly. He drops in loads of little references to like OG cinema, which he loves. It's great.
I also feel like from that, watching Goodfellas, it really helps you understand Casino, The Irishman, even Killers to an extent, The Departed. It sort of is the center point from which the rest of those seem to come up. Not that I don't think any of them are as good as, they're not the same film, but I'm like, you start with Goodfellas and work your way out to the sides. Yeah. And that's for me, I go, okay, well, there you go. That's his number 1.
Yeah.
Are we doing his best or our favorites? Or are we just having a discussion?
It's the same as it's what we think. What we would get our personal favorites.
Personal favorites.
Like we did with Ryan Gosling, right? My favorite Ryan Gosling.
Right.
But it's a mixture of both. I like with the Ryan Gosling one, it was like I would put certain things high because I think that's his best performance.
Nice, yeah.
But yeah, personal choices. So I would say after that, I'd put Goodfellas at number 1. And
I've
then
got Taxi Driver hovering next.
yeah, I've got Taxi Driver hovering next because it's it's like the definitive, quintessential,
A different style, but also
so famous,
really well
so
regarded.
iconic,
Put him on the map in a lot of
interesting.
ways.
Yeah, still very queasily relevant Taxi Driver and about a disgruntled man, disaffected,
Kind of poignant, and it's not dated in the way that you think it might have done.
No.
In another political landscape, we might look back at that film and go, oh, well, you know, it was a different time. But actually, sadly, there's a lot to be unpacked if you rewatch Taxi Driver today.
And there's this sort of in many ways he's like this horrible, dangerous individual, but he has this kind you feel this kind of sympathy for him as you say, poignant, and he is the hero in his own story. I think Taxi Driver is the reason why people still talk about it. It's been a while since I've seen it. I did see it. I saw it at the cinema 8 years ago, which is quite cool. The great Bernard Herrmann score.
Yeah,
I'd love to watch it again. But I remember I watched Taxi Driver for the first time when I was about 12. But I was really struck by it. I was like, wow, this is really. Again, that idea of a character who's so difficult and complex and violent, but actually you feel sympathy and you feel his estrangement, you feel his frustration.
You really feel like you're watching him through a frame.
But then what do we got for number 3?
So when I started thinking about Martin Scorsese and
Scorsese
and what makes some of his great films great, I think about fantastic ensemble casts all firing on all cylinders, doing their best work. And a film that personally really does that for me is The Departed. It's so intricately woven, beautifully assembled, with amazing performances. I'm constantly looking at clips and scenes from The Departed with just going, oh, God, yeah, that is a good film. And those guys really are acting their asses off. And the editing and the way the music rolls around and the layers of depth that story gives. I think it's one of the most fun Scorsese films to watch and whack on. I think they're one of the easiest to recommend.
Yes.
And personally, because I grew up with it and I was young when it came out and it's got some of my favourite actors in it, I go, do you know what? The Departed absolutely slaps. So I'm going to put it in my personal sort of top 3 there.
I think it's in mine, but I'm actually putting it at number 5 just from this initial list of not knocked up. For the same reasons as you.
Yeah.
Very rewatchable, very dependable, great moments, great scenes. I love a villainous Matt Damon. He's in that. Yeah. Just another great collaboration with Leo.
Keeps you on the edge of your seat as well. Keep you guessing. Even towards the very end, you're like, oh my God.
And the great ensemble cast. You know, it's the Mark Wahlberg, the Alec
getting the
Baldwins,
best out of all of those
Sheen.
actors. Yeah.
But for me, actually, my number 3 is The Wolf of Wall Street because it's like, look, again, it's like we've sorted OG Scorsese and old school Scorsese, but in 2013, you know, when most directors are way past their prime, he delivers a film that feels fresh, modern, slick, so entertaining, so engaging, and I remember just having such a great time in the cinema with that. And yes, it's a bit of a bro-y film, I know, but like, it is just such a performance and such a well-executed piece of work. And hats off to his regular editor, Thelma Schoonmaker, who takes a 3-hour cut and makes it something watchable, entertaining. I think it's great.
So I've got that next, and I agree with everything you say. It's a film that I agree in lesser hands could have been a really distasteful film, but it's so much smarter than everyone else, and that's why it really, really works. Again, getting the very best out of actors like John Bernthal, Jonah Hill, Margot Robbie, Leo. His transformative performance from Jonah Hill. And then since that film's come out, he's talked about working with him, his process, like him overthinking it, overacting, bringing it back down. Matthew McConaughey. Yeah. It's just filled with amazing scenes.
Margot Robbie, of course.
Yeah, but making of Margot Robbie in so many ways. And I just think it's brilliant. And I like that if received by the wrong eyes is a celebration of everything that film is showing off, and by certain people it's a damning indictment of greed and capitalism and where that takes you.
I love the
you know what, if you told me we had to go and watch it tomorrow, I'd be like, yeah, fuck yeah, let's go. I can't wait to come back in.
Oh my, it's one of those. It's a 3-hour movie, but you could throw it on easily.
Yes.
It's just so engaging.
Amazing Leonardo DiCaprio performance, talking directly to the camera, really addressing you and making fun of the fact that you don't really know what he's talking about, which really brings you closer to him as a character. But he's flawed, but likable. Especially getting you really root for him when he's that salesman calling people up and everyone's watching him.
It's not dissimilar to something like The Apprentice, is it? You know, like this sort of similar arc of someone becoming quite horrible and monstrous by the end, but like, you know, you don't sympathize with Trump in the same way in The Apprentice, but like similar world. I love it. Again, it's the wings of Scorsese. Like most directors would have been past their prime by that point, but he just delivers this film that's so fresh and so new. And if you were saying to me, I wouldn't rush to watch Taxi Driver right now, but if you were like, do you want to watch the Wolf of Wall Street?
Yeah,
throw it on.
easy,
Have a great
easy.
time.
How long doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Yeah, get
John
it on
Favreau in that movie, Spike Jonze as well. You know,
Yes,
all these directors
yep.
turning up, and Rob Reiner is his
You had
dad.
all your $6,000 aside.
$26,000. The sides do cure cancer.
I
That's
had
the
all
problem.
sides. And I also think the film poster and the DVD box art for that film is great with the bright yellow and Leo's cheeky face just being like, "Yep, I did it."
Do you know what? I had one of the strangest experiences watching that film where I think I was pretty much like in the front row. It was great. But completely coincidental to this film. At that time, my friend and I had just really got into this very old track by an artist called Howlin' Wolf called Smokestack Lightning, right? And we were just playing it all the time. We really liked it. And like whenever we'd go for a drink, we'd like play it. And it was like that month we'd listen to it a lot, or maybe even longer than that. Anyway, we go sit down, we go to watch the film. And then like that song drops like 40 minutes into the film. We were like, we couldn't believe it. We were like, it's Smokestack Lightning. Yeah. Oh man, we love it. So that was a kind of special moment, yeah.
I've not seen Raging Bull. And I need to see that, I think, because it's one of his classics.
Yes.
Already one of his most famous films.
I watched it when I was like about 14, didn't really click with it.
Yeah.
I think it was just missing that like panache that I expected with Scorsese, even though loads of people rate it. Again, another one I'm going to add onto the list.
Yeah.
This is the thing, if you get, you watch a lot of films, but you live long enough, you have to go and rewatch them all again because you move into a different phase of your life.
Speaking of, a film I'll never rewatch? Silence.
Yeah.
That's a film that I
Absolutely.
went to go and see with a friend of mine who also loves films, and it was like new Scorsese film, Andrew Garfield, Adam Driver, what's his name? Kieran Hines,
yes.
Liam Neeson. We were like, fuck yeah, let's go and see it. And I'll never forget, we were so excited talking about things it was evoking, blah, blah, blah. Sat through that long film, which I think is the longest feeling Scorsese film, and that's saying quite a lot considering his films. We both just came out of it. We were very drained and depleted and maybe a bit overstimulated by the experience. We both just had like nothing to say.
Yeah.
Do you know when a film kind of saps the energy out of you as the characters on screen are tortured and starved and dragged through the mud? I almost felt like I had been a little bit. And when it got to like the sort of bits in the end, I was like, I've had everything I need to eat.
I feel emaciated.
It's kind of totally drained. It's just a shame because I love Andrew Garfield and everyone's really, as with all Scorsese films, they're really giving the very best they can give. And it's shot beautifully.
And he's tried to make that film for years.
Yeah.
And it's such a contrast to The Wolf of Wall Street, which he'd made before. Not that we were expecting it, but my point is like it's a testament to him
Different
as a filmmaker.
type.
But the film is monastic in that it is cold and quiet and dry. And it's an austere movie.
I'm not sure we've had anyone email in about Silence.
And no one's whacking that one. No one's going, oh, come on, put a bit of
Hey
silence.
guys, why the sleepover? The worst sleepover ever. But like, the opposite. Like, if you say you were going to put on The Wolf of Wall Street at a sleepover, you'd be like, oh yeah, fun. If you have seen Silence, have thoughts on Silence, if you like Silence, please, as always, write into hello@popkitchenpodcast.com. If you're interested to just hear another person's takes, you and I quite aligned on it.
I remember seeing it with 4 of my friends, and my friend to my right fell asleep within 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I know, but like, that's fine, but it's a long film to go. And then during the many, many protracted moments of silence, he went, like that. I just woke up and all the people are like, shh.
It's a lot of Andrew Garfield and Adam Driver sat under a bush while it's raining.
Slowly starving.
2% body fat, but like, I cannot believe that Father Padre would denounce his faith in such a way. You cannot lose the...
Oh dear.
Oh.
Okay,
Great.
so next up, we need to decide our fourth now. I've got Killers of the Flower Moon for fourth. So I am actually going to put it in there. It's slight recency bias, but I think, like with Wolf of Wall Street, again, the older he gets, the fact that he could pull off a movie like that, which for me has, I think, Robert De Niro's best performance in it. I think it's just great, that movie. Really great.
Totally. There is a recency bias thing there where I'm not sure. I'm like, is it as good as the other ones? And like, I could imagine rewatching Gangs of New York the next few weeks and being like, George, it is still great.
wow.
Like, it's fantastic. It's a triumph. But yeah, like, I was so impressed by Killers of the Flower Moon, and he like calmed any nerves I had about taking on that story with all of those actors over that runtime and not delivering. And I don't think many other people are talking about Killers of the Flower Moon in the way we are.
Really didn't rate it as highly.
No, like I don't hear other people being like, yeah, I saw that and I thought it was brilliant.
I feel like more people rave about The Irishman. Probably A, because it's on Netflix, but also because I think it's playing Scorsese's hits of like Pacino, De Niro, Pesci. And I'm like, but Killers of the Flower Moon is a bolder film because it's about a specific, very complex and very dark chapter of American history.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But it happily sits there for me. It's a film that I do want to rewatch, whereas The Irishman, I don't.
No.
I really enjoyed my time with The Irishman, and it was like being carefully taken through by a very experienced filmmaker. And yeah, you had the great actors of like Scorsese's filmography there. But I was like, this is really good. I'm watching this on a plane when no one can disturb me and take me out of this 3.5 hour runtime, and I'm done with it now.
My thing with The Irishman was like, it felt like the Avengers Endgame of all gangster movies. So what I mean by that is it really felt like the assembling of any single actor who had even touched a gangster flick. Now, I'm not just talking about Pacino and De Niro
Stephen Graham
and Pesci. It's Stephen Graham. It's Bobby Cannavale's in it. It's even Stephen Van Zandt from The Sopranos turns up singing at one point. And it's like all these actors, supporting actors who have been in The Sopranos and have been in Carlito's Way, and have all the actors who have been in this genre turn up in this film. And I really feel like that genre, that was the last hurrah. That said all it needed to say. Yeah. It came back with The Irishman. It like assembled all of the Avengers of American crime movies, did it, and then put it to bed. And I'm like, I'm done now. If you bring out another like gangster movie set in the 60s, like The Irishman was the final word. That was the Avengers Endgame of that genre.
I want to give a shout out to Casino, which I only saw for the first time, I think, a couple of years ago. I really remember I watched it on a cruise ship whilst I was working because it's so long. I watched it in 3 installments, but at the end of like the nights where I was watching Casino, I was like, I get to go home to my cabin and watch the next bit of Casino, and it was really good. And maybe that helped my experience watching it because it was very low stakes. I wasn't like trying to review it for the show. I just got to like truncate it. I wasn't gonna like bring myself down by needing to watch it all in one sitting. And I was like, this is still really good. Yeah. And Robert De Niro's just fucking amazing, and so is Joe Pesci, and it's like another hit in his wheelhouse with those actors.
Again, on my list to rewatch. I want to give a shout out. Well, no, we'll finish. I mean, so what? So isn't Killers in your top 5 then?
Killers in my top 5.
Okay, so we've got the same film slightly. We've just changed around Wolf and Departed.
You know what's closely coming in for me, and I admit this might just be me. Shutter Island.
Yeah, it's just you.
It's just me. I really like Shutter Island. I think it's really good fun.
It's great. I've only seen it once.
It's an underrated gem of Scorsese's, if you ask me.
Okay, I'll tell you this. I think probably, maybe I've misremembered it. And as a 16-year-old, because I could tell where it was going within 5 minutes and it ended up going that way, I was like, I felt a bit self-aggrandized, being like, well, I'm smarter than this film. I will accept that that's probably not the case. And now, as I go back as a 30-year-old and watch it, I can enjoy the wider film for what it is.
Was it? I don't want to spoil Shutter Island if people haven't seen it. Was it the main bit that was spoiled that you knew? Because I think that's kind of mostly assumed by people watching it.
I was like, well, it's
the bit at the very last moment.
I didn't care about that fight. The last moment is like, that's inconsequential.
Oh, so I thought that was interesting, and then you want to rewatch it, and then you rewatch it through a new lens. I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't seen it. I like it. Again, I've not seen it in a long time.
It's not as good as The Prestige, is it?
No. It's not as good as Prestige.
But
no one was saying that. No. Hey. No one was saying it's as good as The Prestige.
I want to give a shout out to After Hours, which is this kind of like really anarchic, crazy love letter to New York, which is like a kind of Safdie Brothers movie before the Safdie Brothers. King of Comedy as well. I really want to rewatch it, but that's just like, it's like the flip side of Taxi Driver. It's almost the same narrative, but if Taxi Driver is a tragedy, King of Comedy is a comedy, and Joker, the 2019 film, borrows heavily from both, but mostly from King of Comedy. That's why I want to rewatch it.
Age of Innocence, I watched it at uni because we were studying the book. I have no real thoughts about it. I just had to watch it. I was like, oh, it's a Scorsese film I haven't seen.
Anna got me it on Criterion, and I have never watched it, but I should do.
Right.
She was like, here's a Scorsese film you never watched with Daniel Day-Lewis. And I was like, great.
It's technically all things that would be
in the cupboard. It goes, and I've not pulled it out again. I went basically sort of early 2021, post-COVID, during COVID. I went through a phase of just buying a lot of Criterions on like sales, and I have a collection of Criterions that are just like quite random.
Yeah.
And I got them and go, oh, this is great. And I'm not going to be one of those people, James, who just puts them away and never watches them. Anyway, I put them away. And
How many do you have? How many DVDs? Or
I've probably got
special
20.
DVDs? Okay, that's not that many.
I've sold a couple. I've got the Tree of Life.
What did you sell?
I sold what? I sold like Metropolitan, which is a Whit Stillman film.
Right.
I sold a couple of minor ones, but I have some great ones I'm very proud of, like the Before trilogy as a whole box
of course,
set.
yeah.
They all got a bit sun faded in my last flat though, so it's slightly.
Because they were in the sun.
Yeah, well, they were on the bookcase, and my old flat had big windows, and it's kind of slightly taken the allure out of it in a very
Don't enjoy the
materialistic
patina.
sense. No,
You wanted like a really clean shelf of your favorite films, or like your noteworthy.
I would happily put them out to display again, but it's more that like I look at them now as a collection of media or films, many of which I haven't seen. There are some good. I've got
Put Silence in there.
Do the Right Thing. I've got some like niche. There's a film with Lawrence Fishburne and Jeff Goldblum called Deep Cover from the '90s. Got that in there.
Yeah.
I got
these you haven't.
12
haven't
Angry
seen.
Men.
Oh yeah, you've seen that, yeah.
And so, yeah, some Tree of Life I've seen, but I
You
need
should
to
do a
put out.
presentation of your Criterion collection.
Happily. I tell you what, one of the best ones I saw was a film called Desert Hearts, which was shot by the Robert Elswit, who shot a lot of PTA's stuff.
Right. Oh yeah, of course.
And it was shot in the California desert, I think, or is it? It might be Texas. I can't remember. Where's Reno, Texas? And it looks gorgeous. Oh,
Yeah.
God, it's gorgeous. Like Call Me By Your Name level gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's a nice discovery.
You know what comes into my mind quite a lot? Because I'm not happy with the varying streaming quality of films that are available. So like Netflix's 4K is fine, but it's not perfect. Apple TV has a good quality 4K that I find the least compressed, but I can't control what resolution it plays at. And so in my mind, I'm thinking like, should I get a Blu-ray player or buy a PlayStation with a 4K Blu-ray player so that I could own the films I really, really like and don't want to wonder like think, oh yeah, like a 4K version of Lord of the Rings.
Is that what you gave me? That's 4K.
I think I
Just
gave you the
Blu-ray.
1080 one because you don't have a 4K Blu-ray player.
Not my PlayStation 3.
No, that 4K wasn't a thing. That's a 1080p Blu-ray player. So 4K Blu-ray is like an even higher thing, and they're like really uncompressed. Sound is uncompressed. The file size is like more like 50 gigs, whereas the one you're streaming off Apple is more like 9 or 10.
I watched it. Sorry, I'll let you finish your.
And so I just think a lot about like, oh, should I build a collection? Doesn't have to be huge of films. I just kind of want to, if I do want to go back to them, I get to enjoy them in the best quality. So I think about that a lot, and then I never do it. But maybe I will when I go to my new place. I might buy a 4K Blu-ray player, or if I get a PlayStation with the 4K Blu-ray player attachment, I might do it.
Stay tuned for James's hardware purchases.
And if I do, maybe I'll have a shelf and I'll review it on the show. But
I will just say, Anna's mum gave us a TV, her old TV, which is great, by the way.
Great.
It's like a great OLED, and I've never had an OLED before.
Oh, the
and I
best.
watched an early episode of season 2 of The American Office on that TV.
Yeah.
And it is so strange because that is usually lo-fi, grainy, grey, poorly lit. You remember that the early seasons of The American Office. And having that then on like an OLED TV where it's kind of high quality, it makes it look like a high production, high key version of like Friends. I just thought, oh wow, I'm not used to seeing this transposed in this way.
I will say one thing to be aware of.
Motion smoothing.
No, but always be aware of that. No, one thing to be aware of is like I think there are certain films that have not done well with their 4K remasters. So I think in particular the Indiana Jones trilogy 4K remaster, which I've only watched granted on my laptop, I think the sharp rescan of that film has lost some of the quality that made it more special, and like over sharpening and over clarifying that film hasn't done any justice to it. I would prefer to watch the VHS DVD release, because I'm like, I don't think that film was edited, graded. Its visual effects weren't considered in 4K, and I think that takes away from the original Indiana Jones films.
Do you go online and watch the YouTube things which compare the scenes side by side?
Not actually, but it happens. It happens, yeah. I remember I told you about the Matrix one that got rescanned, and actually the colour we think the Matrix is not actually what the colour the colorist said it should have been, and it's this whole debate of what looks better. Now I'm like, if I got the 4K version of the Matrix, which is actually not the DVD that we grew up on, would I just like it? So and then I just get on with my life. Then I'm like, I'll have lunch.
Well, anyway, guys, that was a quick chat about Martin Scorsese's top films. Thank you, Owen, for sending in that list. James and I are on the same films, just in a slightly different order.
Tangents.
Don't forget to check out the main show this week. Thank you for your support, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to our producers, Finn and Dave.
My name is
And my name
James.
is...
Your name is
George.
George.
My name is... Bye, guys. Have a good week.
Thanks so much.